He makes headlines whether it's in his crusade battling against climate change as the island president or fighting against what he calls a virtual coup at gunpoint. Mohammed Nasheed, the Maldives' first democratically elected president and who, depending on whose viewpoint you look at, was ousted, deposed or resigned, joins us. Mr. Nasheed, thanks so much for joining us. The last time we talked in February, you had expressed a little bit of concern about the Indian reaction to developments in the Maldives, but you hoped things would get better. Months on, what's your take now?
Well, we feel that India has engaged with the situation in the Maldives quite appropriately now, I would argue, and we hope to see greater Indian robust engagement in the situation and to see if there can be early elections in the Maldives as soon as possible.
You're talking about early elections, but just on Wednesday, proclamation from the President's office, the current President Wahid's office, says nothing before June or July 2013 because constitutionally that's not allowed.
Well, this is really quite strange because this is not a constitutional issue. When we want to have, if we want to have early elections, President Wahid would have to resign, and then the Speaker of the House can take over for 2 months and he can go ahead with elections. There's no ambiguity in that at all. But in that scenario, you would have to have 2 elections. You would have to have an election now and you would have to have an election again in 2013. Now, if lawmakers want to avoid 2 elections, of course they can go and amend the constitution and then make sure that there is 1 election. But what we are arguing is that there has to be elections as soon as possible to bring the country back on track. The government in the Maldives must be formed through the consent of the people, but not through brute force. So we need to have elections as quickly as possible. Now, yes, at some instances the government is saying that there cannot be elections until 2013. But again, today they have said early elections will only be possible after an investigation into what happened. So if an investigation, what they're suggesting is, and if an investigation proves that it was a coup, then they should go into early elections. And so therefore that statement is an indication saying that they are willing to go into early elections if it was a coup and if that can be proved by an unbiased independent investigation.
You were slightly hesitant when I asked you about India's role, though you're saying that you're satisfied at the moment. Officials were rushed there, of course, and there was a certain roadmap that was talked about with both sides. How really satisfied are you?
Well, India has a signed agreement with the regime in the Maldives, and that calls for early elections. Foreign Secretary Ranjan Mathai spoke to all the parties, and all the parties agreed for an early election. And that agreement is with the Indian government. I would hope that the Indian government would implement that agreement and make sure that the regime in the Maldives honors their word.
How much leverage do we really have to do that?
India has a whole lot of leverage to do. They have a number of tools, diplomatic tools as well, coercive action if they need to. And I'm sure that they can get the government to go into early elections.
Action you're talking about, what are you suggesting?
Well, we've seen the number of measures deployed in, for instance, Nepal and many other instances in many other countries. I think India knows this, understands this, and it can be done. Specifically? Well, it's really up to the government of India to decide on which specific tool to employ. As I mentioned, these tools are available to them.
What are the tools that are available?
Well, in the case of Nepal, there was punitive economic measures, travel bans, and a whole wide range of things to do.
So you're not talking about any military options? That's
no, I'm not talking about military options. It's to be on the ball, to be at it all the time, and to make sure that the thing doesn't go off track.
Do you have the NDTV Profit app? All the markets, all the news and your own homemade, ready-made portfolio available there for you.
We will right now answer what you should sell, what you should buy when markets are down.
Download at ndtvprofit.com/apps. Get the best app from the channel you trust.